You can call this morning's guest Your Honor, Colonel, Professor, Chief Judge, philanthropist, entrepreneur, so many others. I'm just going to call him Dad. Meet Robinson Everett, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at East of Chicago Pizza on 40th Avenue North and Kings Highway here in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on part 3 of Robinson Oscar Everett. And we're visiting with the man himself. Good morning, Dad.
Great to be with you, Greg.
Part 3 for viewers who weren't with us yesterday or even the day before.
And I've been cross-examined by my son for the past 2 days.
You've been cross-examined for the last hour. We got another 25 minutes of it. I'm glad you came back for part 3. I think it's the great buffet here at East of Chicago that keeps getting you back day after day.
I'm looking forward to it in a matter of minutes.
This place is amazing. Their buffet, even they were kind enough to pull it out early here in the morning for us to experience it. But it is pizza done right, as they say here. Pete, the pizza guy up front. This place is amazing.
This is great.
You know, Emma Claire had her 4th birthday party here. We had folks in from all over. Hilda, our around town columnist, was here to snap some great shots along with her granddaughter. And
I wish I could have been here myself.
It was a great time, absolutely.
Get me back for the next one.
We will. If we have number 5 down here, or 6 or 7, we'll definitely do it. You know, it was so exciting the last couple of days. We were really only in the early 50s, and we've got another 50-plus years of your legal training and education and, of course, teaching. But, of course, a very exciting thing happened in, was it 1954 in Washington, while you were up there as a commissioner on the U.S. Court of Military Appeals? What was that, Dad?
Oh, my mother and Dad came up, and lo and behold, we all got sworn in together to the bar of the U.S. Supreme Court. And that was quite an experience. The first time that any family of 3 people like that had ever done that.
That's right. The first triple family swearing in the history. I wonder if they've done it since then.
I think some family did it later. I may be wrong.
Right. But 1954 was a big year.
We got there first.
Many things. And in addition, I believe in 1956, did you not write a book that year?
I think I wrote it earlier and finally got it published in 1956. I discovered writing a book is a lot easier than getting it published.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But this was published.
What was the book about?
About military justice.
Okay.
It was a summary, and I've got a contract to update it now 50 years later.
Is that right? Wow.
All you got to do is write it.
You better get to it, Dad. That's right. Update it. That's going to take some work.
It will.
You've got some other books in the hopper, is that right? Or ones you're planning to work on?
Well, what I want to do is do a history of my 10-plus years as Chief Judge of what was then the Court of Military Appeals.
Right.
Name's been changed to Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. So I've got to do that. I want to try it. And then I'm trying to work on a project that involves my father's diary. He, as I mentioned when we were talking
yesterday, the day before,
he was a very remarkable person, had a unique career, and one of the things that was unique was that each week, beginning around 1915, he would write a diary, typically on Sunday night, telling what had happened and what he expected the week ahead. And he kept doing that until 1970.
45 years.
I think it's 55.
You're right. I'm not good with math. That was not my forte. That's right. 55 years.
The only problem was that it was in hieroglyphics. You could hardly read it.
Really?
And fortunately, your younger brother, Luke, was willing to break the code and transcribe it. And I think the material there is going to be fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
A history, and Father was involved in a lot of activities in the legislature, handled a lot of interesting cases, had some interesting investments. And I think that history is going to be very, very interesting. In fact, before he died, he asked me, as I was going to be his executor, to destroy the diary. He said it was so personal.
Really?
Yeah, and I said, I can't do that.
You told him, though, that you wouldn't do it.
I told him, Father, you don't want me to do that. It's too much history there. Well, he'd been very much of a historian. He'd worked with people at Duke and others who were historians, and he agreed with me finally and said, "That's
good."
So,
good. So you didn't.
No. I
didn't cancel his deathbed wish. That's good.
I just don't think I could have brought myself.
That would have been very difficult if he took a diary for 55 years. That's amazing. I'm so glad you mentioned Luke, my younger brother, because it gives an opportunity to share about what he and his wife and my older brother all. They're just heading into their third year of law school.
You know, there may be another record. I mentioned the record when our family got sworn into the bar of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
I am wondering whether there will not be a record when you've got two brothers and one of their wives, all with the name Everett,
right,
scheduled to graduate at UNC Law School in September of next year. That's September. In June, May of next year.
May of, that's right. Now that's exactly right.
May of 2008. That's almost unbelievable. Three at one time.
That's right. And of course, it's particularly unbelievable in that they're studying at the law school where the law library is named after their grandmother or grandmother-in-law.
And whenever they go into that law library, they've got to look up at the big portrait
Catherine McDermott Robinson, Catherine Robinson Everett. That's exactly right. Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine is, as she aptly pointed out, her niece and namesake, Catherine Neal, does as good or better a job, your first cousin, in highlighting the name Catherine than virtually anyone I know.
Yeah. So I think they may be making some history, and we still have a family firm.
Yes.
Everett and Everett.
Everett and Everett.
And
of course, you're the only Everett in that Everett and Everett.
The only one alive. But
the only one alive.
My mother and dad are there in spirit.
So it's really Everett, Everett, and Everett.
Yeah. People thought our secretary stuttered, Everett. But now it may be possible, if the kids, some of them join us, to have Everett again. I don't know.
Or even more. 5 Everetts there. You can use that name. There's another Everett law firm in Raleigh, Everett, Gaskins, Hancock, and Stevens, of which I believe you're of counsel.
I'm of counsel to them, and the Everetts say, I guess, are my mother, dad, and myself. I'm not sure, but it's a long-established firm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of the Sanford firm and the Terry Sanford firm. And
some of those people.
Some of those folks merged in there together, which is very exciting. You know, we mentioned Ned Everett yesterday, Dad, who's been like a brother you never had, who's been such a close friend and confidant, and a former student of yours. Is that correct?
Right. Ned is my double second cousin, whatever that means. I think it's two grandparents married, two male grandparents married two female grandparents.
Right.
Anyway, he was my law student. He's been a wonderful friend.
Yes.
When I go to Washington, I frequently will stay with him.
Yeah, and he was there on the 17th floor, maybe, of the River House, or on the 7th floor for many years.
And he was a counsel for the Merchant Marine and Fisheries Committee of
That's right. Worked on the Hill for a long time. Has been a realtor there in Virginia Realty for many years. You know, there's so many. You think of so many past students. Not many of them you were related to, but a heck of a lot of students over your 50-plus years of teaching at Duke Law School. Continuous since '56.
Yeah, I guess that's about right. I think I
taught that 1 year, which you shared with us a couple days ago. 1 year, 50 to 51, left for 5 years, came back in '56.
I hate to admit it, I don't know whether it was in the fall semester of '56 or the spring semester of '57.
Is that right?
It was 50 years ago.
Sure, 50 years continuous anyway. That's right. Yeah. And, of course, the excitement there. And then you were tenured in '67. I think you said you got an LLM there at Duke in '59. Right.
I thought if I was going to be teaching there, it would be nice to have a degree.
Absolutely.
And I took courses on the GI Bill.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's amazing. There's so many things that happen over the course of that all that time, Dad. It's over the 50-plus years straight. It's amazing.
It really is. It's been exciting, and great variety. I've tried to get involved in some public service activities over the years.
Absolutely. It's great being here at East of Chicago Pizza. They're kind to let some folks in at 7 a.m. to come in and enjoy skee ball. We've got a mom and her son, I guess, or some others, a child over there enjoying skee ball here.
Yeah.
East of Chicago does it all. It's pizza and fun done right.
It provides an interesting background.
A great background there. Absolutely. You can see why Emma Claire loves this place so much. Well, we think it's not only, of course, teaching the law at Duke, also practicing the law, but in 1980, you changed focus a little bit and share with viewers what happened in the year 1980.
Well, I'd been active after I got off active duty. I stayed in the Air Force Reserve, became a full colonel before I retired in 1978.
Right.
I was chair of the Military Justice Committee of the American Bar at one point. So I had a continuing contact, wrote some articles on military justice. And I was approached one day, I think it was just about the time of my last Air Force tour of duty. A two-star general whom I knew asked me whether I would be willing to be considered for appointment to a vacancy on the Court of Military Appeals. And I thought, well, sure, why not? I thought it was all just some sort of dream, as it were. When I came home and told my wife, she wasn't very happy, with the idea that I was might be going to Washington. I said, well, that's very, very doubtful. And I was only going to be filling a 13-month, some month expired term.
Right.
And time went on. I guess actually at that point it would have been 2 or 3 years. Well, the filling of vacancies is very, very slow. But I realized the general was serious when I got a call to come to the Pentagon and meet with an assistant secretary of defense and some other people. So things moved ahead. Jimmy Carter was president. Carter had a commission appointed to consider potential candidates. I was called before that commission, and apparently they recommended me to the White House.
Amazing.
And all of a sudden I was appointed. Interestingly, that court has a statutory requirement that not all the members of the court be of the same political party. There were then 3 judges on the court, actually 2 because of a vacancy, and those 2 were Republicans.
Right.
So Jimmy Carter had to appoint a Democrat, and I was a Democrat. Now there are 5 judges. There could be only 3 of one party. But in any event, I got word that I was going to be appointed. And,
Right.
It was in April of 1980. I went before a Senate committee.
Yeah.
I guess I gave the right answers to the questions, and there I was, confirmed and then sworn in. And ironically, although at that time apparently I was to serve only 13 months, Congress changed the law to say that anybody appointed to fill an unexpired vacancy would serve at least 10 years, either the unexpired amount of the term
Right.
or a minimum of 10 years. So all of a sudden, from 13 months, I had 10 years.
How did you explain that to your wife, Dad?
And then
My
later,
mother, yeah.
later they added a few more months. She was a very patient lady, I tell you. And I would go up and spend the week. I got an apartment up there, then come home on the weekend and teach at Duke on a Monday morning, and then go back up there. It was an interesting experience trying to juggle the different things I was doing. Hopefully did it okay. And then when I finally retired, and my term had been extended still further, so that I retired on September the 30th, 1990.
Right.
The size of the court was expanded from 3 to 5. the president had not appointed anybody to fill the vacancy, so that meant there were two judges.
This is President Clinton at the time, yeah.
President Bush.
Oh, Bush, forgive me.
President
That's
Bush.
exactly right, sorry.
The first Bush.
Right, right.
He had not filled a vacancy, and so that meant there were two judges and three vacancies. And they asked me, the chief judge who took over from me, Judge Eugene Sullivan, he asked me if I'd stay around as a senior judge. I'd become a senior judge so I could still fill in. And as recently as 2 years ago, I filled in on a murder appeal.
No.
But he asked me if I would stay around, and I said, okay, you need me, I'll stay. And I stayed until January of 1992. It took him 15 months to fill those three vacancies.
January of 92. That's amazing.
I swore in the fifth judge at that point.
You swore in the fifth judge?
Yeah. Then later that judge died, and I filled in for a few months while they were trying to
That's
fill the
amazing.
vacancy.
Golly, did.
So 13 months expanded to, in aggregate, well over 11 and a half
You've
years.
remained on as a senior judge of that court?
Absolutely.
Right.
I assume that they will have no great need for me, but I attend the judicial conferences, participate in other ways.
Right.
And as I mentioned, in August, I think it was 2005, I did sit on an appeal of a murder case.
Yes.
The case was actually heard in Chicago rather than the courthouse, part of a program that I initiated while I was chief judge. You know, we'd go out and hear cases at other places besides Washington.
Oftentimes even law schools.
Yeah.
Didn't you go to Wake Forest one year?
Wake Forest, Duke,
University of Richmond?
Harvard, several places.
Yeah.
And one of the other things we did, this was what I call Project Outreach. One of the other things I did was to...
Sorry, yeah, we're going.
Nice, we got it.
Absolutely. 7 a.m. We've got some kids here on the set. Isn't that great?
But one of the other things I did, which was sort of groundbreaking, was initiate television coverage of some of the arguments.
Right, right.
And
you go ahead and keep that, absolutely.
It was something that resulted from a conversation with a guy who was an attorney for one of the networks, and he mentioned they had wanted to televise a Supreme Court hearing.
Right.
have the arguments there televised. But the justices did not like the idea. It's sort of an invasion of privacy, et cetera, or whatever. And so he was very depressed. It did not look as if any federal court would be willing to do that. And I said, well, we are a federal court, Court of Appeals, a civilian court.
Right.
But we're established under a different constitutional provision. Therefore, we're not subject to direct supervision by the Supreme Court and the Judicial Conference. And we're free to go ahead with television. So we'll have a couple of televised arguments. And it was very interesting. We did some groundbreaking in that regard, and I think it was desirable in the long run.
Absolutely. It was big. I remember there were times when, I think there was a time you were pumping gas up in Virginia, and a guy had said that he had seen you on C-SPAN.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to the, obviously, opening up the courts to the cameras.
We were on Court TV. And,
Court TV.
I asked the lawyers, well, I'm trying to think, did it affect our behavior as judges? And you get involved in one of those arguments, it really doesn't affect you. And I asked some of the counsel, and one guy said it had affected him at first to know that he was being televised, but as soon as he got into the argument, that faded from the scene.
You had some fabulous attorneys argue in front of you. I remember a time Mom traveled up to hear F. Lee Bailey in a big case. Was it an espionage case?
Espionage case involving an Air Force Lieutenant Cook. And F. Lee Bailey made a great presentation. I came to know him through that and had a high regard for him.
Oh, yeah.
So we had some fascinating issues there, all sorts of things, some that would arise in other courts and some that were unique to the military justice system.
Right, right. You know, it is amazing, Dad. There's so many things. We don't have much time. We're running out of time here on part 3. But I look at your service as chairman of LAMP, and we want to understand, or if you'll share with viewers real quick about that. Your chairman is the service on the North Carolina Bar's Continuing Legal Education Committee, the chairman of IOLTA for many years. Maybe you could share with viewers a little bit about those, just quick synopses. Very interesting, though.
Well, and I want to tell you also a little bit about LENS.
LENS, of course, in founding the Center on Law, Ethics, and National Security.
But a quickie, the State Bar of North Carolina has for some 20-plus years had a committee, which I've chaired, on legal assistance to military personnel.
Right, right.
Which involves service members, their dependents. We're beginning to expand it a little bit to help veterans. And the basic idea is to try to recruit lawyers who will give free legal assistance to military personnel who need it. And we've been very successful. I think the North Carolina program has been viewed as one of the top ones, if not the top one in the nation. Then, at some time in the past, I was involved in chairing a committee to assure that lawyers would go through continuing legal education. They keep attending programs to educate themselves. I was involved at one time in North Carolina as chair of the IOLTA committee, which was interest on lawyers' trust accounts.
Right.
So that money which was in a trust account could earn interest, and that interest could be paid into the North Carolina Bar to support public interest programs.
Great, great.
But the thing I feel particularly proud of is having established at Duke Law School a center on law, ethics, and national security. This is about 10, 12 years ago. I taught courses in national security law at Duke, Carolina, Wake Forest, and it appeared to me that there was need for a center that would coordinate some of the studies on law, the ethical implications, the legal implications. And we were able to get such a center started. The funding came largely from my mother's estate.
Yes.
But, and you're on our board. You've been on our board. And,
for many years, a decade.
We were able to obtain an executive director, a retired, well, he wasn't retired at the time. He retired to take the position, Colonel Scott Silliman.
Who's a superstar, absolutely.
Superstar.
All over the place.
Yeah, you hear him on NPR, you see him on TV.
Lots of TV stations or channels. That's exactly right. Dave, we're running out of time. You know, there's so many things. And Scott Silliman, we love to highlight him. I'm sorry, we're getting, you know, when you think about for you, what has been the most exciting aspect of practicing the law? And then I want to ask you, what's been the best part of teaching the law? Of course, we think about adjudicating or being in a courtroom and having heard some fascinating capital punishment cases or other espionage cases or otherwise. So what's been the most exciting aspect of practicing law since as far back as 1950?
Well, I think in practicing law, the opportunity to help people, point one, and also the opportunity in other instances to settle disputes and to get a peaceful resolution of something which has been filed as a complaint in court. So mediation, participating in that has been valuable. But, you know, just trying to bring things to a suitable solution where everybody is reasonably happy or maybe reasonably unhappy, if you know what I mean. So that's been an important part of practice. You know, the contact with clients, being able to feel like you're helping people. Then as far as teaching, I think the inspiration that you get from these brilliant, wonderful law students. And then at later times, when they're alums, seeing them catching up on the news, helping them out if possible in different things. I ran into a judge the other day who had been my student, I think, in 1950-51.
No, in that first year of teaching.
Down around, I think he's from Salisbury or Statesville, North Carolina. Anyway, that can be fun. I've had several instances in which I have taught in law school the children of former students of mine.
Right.
And that is very meaningful. So, and at Duke Law School, it's been great. I've also had the privilege of teaching some at Carolina and Wake Forest, wonderful schools. I even taught a couple of courses at Georgetown long ago up in Washington. So you run into some wonderful people, you have some great colleagues, but I think it's the contact with the students that really keeps you going, makes it very worthwhile.
And your aspirations did, as we shared yesterday, with your mother having practiced law for 70 plus years, your father for 65 plus years, you now continuous for 57 years. You want to beat them both?
I'd like to keep going in one form or another. I'd like to have your brothers and sister-in-law join me in keeping the Everett firm going on. Duke is allowing me to continue, at least for the present, and I've got a great new seminar that I'm setting up this fall on sentencing and punishment. That's been approved. I'm working on creating a couple of foundations that may be of interest. One is in connection with trying to help federal prisoners who are re-entering the outside community, helping them to avoid getting back in jail.
Right.
And then the other one has nothing to do with law. It's about finger painting.
Finger painting. Golly, Dad, I'm sorry we've run out of time. We'd love to hear more about Ruth Faison Shaw and the amazing foundation you're setting up. And part 3 is over. But thank you so much for being with us the last 3 days. Go enjoy this buffet here at East of Chicago Pizza. This has been a treat.
Well, I'm looking forward to the buffet at East of Chicago.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the Honorable Robinson Oscar Everett coming up next. So many ways we could wrap a 3-part interview. It's tough not to utilize something special like this. Back in '99, Dad won an award from the Judge Advocates Association. Part of that speech is here. The speaker there highlighted all of his students are as devoted to him as he is to them. One of his former clerks stated that he always knows his students, at least by their face. Almost every place he goes, he sees a former student. He has an encyclopedic memory. A real exciting aspect, though, on visits to our military sites. He has a habit of writing a note to everyone he sees, from the commanding generals to the lowest ranking, to come visit his court. One day an E4 arrived, unannounced. Judge Everett was delighted and remembered she'd been one of his drivers on a previous occasion. He made her queen for the day, gave her a personal tour, and took her to lunch. No surprise, one clerk said, he is very busy, but he loves people. He knows no station in life. He is always very inquisitive. Whoever you are, you have something he wants to know about. Like his mother, like his father, like his grandfather, you have something he wants to know about. Very special man, Robinson Oscar Everett.